Sunday, December 15th, 2024. I am Albert Franklin Lankster. Text for today's message. Whew. It's found in the book of Luke, very early in the New Testament. Luke chapter 5, verses 12, 13, 14, which says, "And it came to pass, when he was in a certain city, behold, a man full of leprosy, who seeing Jesus fell on his face and besought him, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean." Verse 13 says, "And he put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be thou clean. And immediately the leprosy departed from him." I'm going to give you verse 14 and try to hurry up and get through here. Verse 14 says, "And he charged him to tell no man, but go and show thyself to the priest, and offer for thy cleansing according as Moses commanded, for a testimony unto them." Subject for the message today is working for God. Working for God. I must say, first of all, that those of us who are not working for God are working against God. Never shall forget the sermon text that I used when I preached my first sermon as a visiting evangelist at the First Baptist Church in London, Alabama in 1979. The text for that sermon was John 9:4, where it says, John 9:4, Jesus said, I must work the works of him that sent me. This is my testimony, my friends, because God sent me to y'all. Working for God is precisely what Jesus was doing. And I must inform us that although the disease of leprosy has been relatively conquered by modern medicine, there's another leprosy that stalks mankind. And it is a spiritual leprosy that has invaded the modern world. Ever since the beginning of the human family, some things have not changed. And I say all the time that human nature does not change. Let me give you a few examples of the history here. This spiritual leprosy can be tied to men and women disobedience to God. beginning with Adam and Eve, the first people disobeyed God. Today, people are still disobeying God. Whew. Look at the first two children came into the world. Their names were Cain and Abel. I'm sure you probably know this, but Cain killed his brother Abel. That started the spiritual disease of leprosy. That continued it. It started at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But brothers have been killing brothers ever since Cain killed Abel. And the Bible says in the Ten Commandments that thou shalt not kill. Today, brother still killing brother all around the world. Huh. I just want to say to you that man is an incurable sinner that has a dreaded disease that I call spiritual leprosy. David put it like this. He said, I was born in sin. Some things, my friend, you're just born into. You were born into the human family, the sinful family. And that is precisely why God's economy requires us to be born again. You may know who your mother and father is, and you may not. But I want you to know that I know that you was born wrong, and you need to be reborn. And this sermon today is about a problem that people have had ever since the beginning of time. This problem of sickness. That's what it is. Sin is a sickness. Yes, I'm thinking about sickness of the body, but there's another sickness, my friend. Another sickness in the soul of man. And that sickness is called S-I-N. Sin. There's a sickness. It runs in the human family. When we were boys, we used to have in rural, primitive Linden, Alabama and West Alabama, we used to have to cut wood. And on some of the wood piles here in Linden, Alabama, you could occasionally find a double-bladed axe. I wish our generation knew something about cutting wood and double-blade axes. Like a two-edged sword. Huh. That double-blade axe cut on both sides. It cuts going and it cuts coming. As I preach today, I will hack or cut at a physical sickness, and I'll hack and cut at a worse kind of sickness, the worst kind of sickness, which is sickness inside the human soul. I'm going to hold Jesus, the featured attraction in this message, the featured attraction in this church. I'm going to hold Jesus as the great doctor who heals all kinds of sickness, even the sickness unto death. Our text says, it came to pass that when he was in a certain city, Jesus is just getting started. The city is Capernaum. And behold, a man full of leprosy, a man full of a dreaded disease, who seeing Jesus, fell on his face and besought him, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, look at the faith, look at the faith. If thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. Jesus didn't waste any time. He didn't require anything on the part of the diseased man. He just put forth his hand, touched him. It was against the law to touch a leper. Jesus was above the law. He touched him, saying, I will. And that's what he's saying to you and me today. He said, I will. You got the faith. Be thou clean. And there was no delay. He didn't heal him as he did the other lepers gradually as they walked away. This leprosy, the Bible uses the word immediately. It says immediately the leprosy fell from him. My friend, Jesus was working for God. As always, he was working for God. And when we work for God, he gives us the right tools to work with. Gives us the right tools to do the job. He gives us a job description in his Bible. And when God's sending a man or woman to work, he puts his spirit upon them. All we need to do God's work is God's spirit. That's all we need. God sent Jesus into the world to work for him. And he sent me to London, Alabama to work for him. Jesus said in Luke 4:18, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. You got to be sent. God sent Jesus. And let me just show you a few of the things that God sent Jesus to do. He sent him to preach the gospel to the poor. He sent him to heal the brokenhearted. Sent him to handle the recovery of sight to the blind. Sent him to set at liberty those that have been bruised. My friend, I want you to know that there is medicine in the gospel. There's medicine in the Bible. Medicine to heal the sick, physically and spiritually. Our world today is sick. Good news, the gospel heals. Bad news of the devil kills. That bad news causes sickness, causes men to be brokenhearted. Reverend Oliver B. Green, before he died, told us, and I used to hobo on his gospel hour train all the time. Oliver B. Green, the gospel hour from Greenville, South Carolina, said this: a broken heart will kill you a whole lot quicker than arthritis. Broken hearts. Jesus came to heal broken hearts. Are you brokenhearted today? There's a friend which stick closer than a brother. Jesus. Is your house, is your home filled with brokenhearted people? Or what about your city? Is it filled with brokenhearted people? I wonder. What about the recovery of sight to the blind, Reverend? Spiritually speaking, the people of Linden, Alabama, I don't know where they are going. I believe they're blind by and large and need Jesus. Set, Jesus, them at liberty, them that are bruised. Whole lot of hustle and scuffle taking place here, there, and yonder. And that hustle and scuffle causes people to get bruised. I see people every day that are bruised. Not in body so much as bruised in their souls. I see them in slavery to sin. Need Jesus to set them free. That's what God sent him to do. God's healing power, my friend, is still in the world today. Where is God healing power? Is it, you say it's in the world today, Reverend? Where is it? I'll tell you where it is. God's healing power is in the Bible. God's healing power is in the church. You ought to get on board today. You ought to come to God's word. You ought to come to his church. Now, let's get a good deep look at the man in our text. The man with leprosy. He didn't have a light case of leprosy. The text said he was full of leprosy. He had the worst sickness that a person could have. He had more than a bad case. He had a full case. He was full of that sickness. And too many people today here are full of sin. What do you mean, Reverend? Full of sin. What is sin? Like Pilate asked Jesus, what is truth? What is sin? I say all the time, sin is a violation of the laws of God. I'm going to say it again. Sin is a violation of the laws of God. The Bible doesn't tell us how the leper got the disease. And we don't need to know how the leper got the disease. What we do need to know is that the man had faith in Jesus, and Jesus healed him. That's all we need to know. The church people in this day in which Jesus healed the leper, they taught that the disease of leprosy and all diseases they taught were put on people by God because of some sin he or she had committed. church was wrong. And don't let me start talking about what churches are wrong today. But they didn't teach it right. The whole way of thinking of a church was wrong. And that's why Jesus came. It was against the law for a leper to speak to anybody. But the leper broke the law and spoke to Jesus. And if a leper broke the law and was caught in town, they couldn't go to town. If he broke the law and was caught in town, this is what his penalty was. He got a whipping of 50 stripes. 50 stripes. I'm sorry, not 50, 40 stripes. And this disease, I'm sure, made the sufferer hate himself. Leprosy is a dreaded disease. And the man in our text had heard about the healing power of Jesus. This poor leper touched the heart of Jesus. How did he touch Jesus' heart? Same way you and I touched Jesus' heart. He believed in Jesus' power. And he submitted to Jesus. He believed in his power. He submitted to his will. Submitted to Jesus' will. What do you mean? What do you mean he submitted to Jesus' will? He said in the text, if thou will, thou canst make me clean. Jesus touched him, and the church said that anybody who touched a leper would himself become unclean. But Jesus came to put that kind of church out of business. And I know of a church that I'd love to go in and put them out of business, go in with a cat o' nine tails and whoop them out. That church was wrong. Let me go further and tell you that this was the first time Jesus had healed a person with leprosy. So he told them in that 14th verse, keep your mouth shut. Go to the priest. Don't go telling everybody. Go to the priest and pay your fine. Pay the offering. The law made the leper pay the church 2 birds and 3 sheep. That was the fine. And Jesus told him to go and keep the law of Moses. And Jesus didn't say this, but I'm going to say this for Jesus. Here's what was behind him telling the leper to keep his mouth shut. He says, I got about 2.5 years to set up my kingdom here. That's what Jesus is saying. I got 2.5 years to set up my kingdom, and I don't want you to cause me unnecessary trouble. So don't you tell nobody. He said, right now, I only have 3 disciples. And I've got to go and pick out 9 more men before I get set up in my ministry. I tell you, my friend, but this healing was so wonderful, he couldn't keep it to himself. I've been in his shoes. I never will forget the night that Jesus slipped into my room. Whew. Immediately, I said to myself, I can't tell nobody about this. I don't think anybody would believe me. I said to myself, people gonna think I'm crazy. I can't tell nobody about this supernatural appearance of Jesus. Where was I and what was I doing? I was poor. I was broke. I was weary. I was wounded. And I was sad. Prime candidate for the miraculous appearance of Jesus. Weary, wounded, and sad. And I was ready to quit preaching and travel 3,000-4,000 miles home. Whew. But Jesus healed my sickness. He mended my broken heart. He put joy in my soul. He put money in my pocket. He told me to keep on keeping on. And I've been running for Jesus ever since. Whew. And this is bad English, and I ain't got tired yet. I'm gonna keep on going. Now, my friends, the doors of the church are open for the acceptance of members. You may unite with the fellowship of the church by letter as a candidate for baptism or by Christian experience. Those are the three modes of admission into the church. In order to become a member of the church, you must have a confession of faith. You must have a regenerate heart, a confession of faith, the acceptance of baptism, and living the Christian life. Those are the four conditions for church membership. You got the modes of admission, you got the conditions, the qualifications for admission. Now, let me work the work of him that sent me. If you want healing for your physical, spiritual sickness, go to God in prayer, saying to him, "Dear God, I know that I'm a sinner. And I believe that Jesus died on the cross to forgive me of my sins." Tell him I'm sorry for all the wrongs that I have done. And I ask you to forgive me. I thank you for your love and your forgiveness. And I thank you for the new life that I will enjoy in Jesus Christ. And I commit to thee on this 15th day of December 2024 that from this day forward, I choose to freely follow you. Now unto him that is able to keep us from falling and present us faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding great joy. Now unto him, the only wise God, to whom be glory, majesty, dominion, and power, both now, henceforth, and forevermore. I am Albert Franklin Lankster, asking God to bless the tie that binds our hearts together in Christian love. Goodbye.